The Girl Behind the Wall by Mandy Robotham, published by Avon, and I listened to this as an audiobook, and it was beautifully narrated by Charlie Norfolk and Hattie Ladbury. This is set in the early 1960s Berlin, when, at the period round when the wall went up. So that happened on 13th of August 1961. And it happened virtually overnight. The Western Allies, so that would be the French, the British and the Americans, had very little, if no sense at all, that this was the plan that was happening. And it was the Russians who pushed into East Germany and got this wall that went right the way through Berlin and then marked off East and West Germany, moving everything into a very new period of tension and I guess aggravation too. It's the story of identical twins, young women, Karin and Jutta. And in those days, before the wall was built, people had business and lives and would cross over quite freely between East and West Berlin. From the point the wall was built, that stopped. So Karin, just before it was built, is over in the east doing some business. She develops appendicitis and is rushed to the Charité hospital. And as she is recuperating, the wall goes up, and it goes up so quickly that people, are left kind of like speechless. They don't know how to respond to it. And by the time they'd given it some thought, it was virtually impossible to pass from east to west. The reason the East Germans said they did this was they wanted to call it the anti-fascist wall. So that's how they sold it to the people who lived in the east. However, they had been losing so many people, doctors, scientists, you name it, who'd been going to the west over the previous years, and they were short of people, so they needed to keep them there to keep their own services going. So 2 years passed, and during this time postal services were cut. You couldn't speak to people on the telephone. I mean, East Germany was absolutely cut off. So these two young women had absolutely no contact with each other. And then one day, Jutta is, she finds a small cat and her babies, and she walks into a building and she discovers that in fact there is a passageway that would allow her to enter the eastern sector, unknown to any of the authorities, and this is what she chooses to do. This is the only way she can get contact with her sister and re-establish some kind of connection. The author has clearly researched this time. She gets the sense of brownness everywhere, of the dull buildings, because, in a way, if you're not surrounded by colour, you feel subjugated. There's nothing to lift you up, and you kind of kowtow to everything going on. She has her characters going to Café Sibylle in Karl Marx Allee. She goes down to Alexanderplatz, and she builds up this very interesting and very convincing story of these two women trying to reconnect and see how their lives are going to move on. And of course, in the intervening 2 years, life has moved on. Karin has got herself a boyfriend. Jutta also has a boyfriend. And things are now not as they were. The Girl Behind the Wall is a very good novel if you want to get a sense of what things were like in Berlin, in 1961 going forward. She captures the feel, the paranoia, the worry, people being scared and withdrawing into themselves. It was a very personally dangerous time for so many people, and I think she gets that really well. She gets the environment very well too. So I think if you want to sort of get a feel for what Berlin was like at that point in time, then The Girl Behind the Wall is a very good book to pick up.